to beat the pusher, are there any tips that they should do? Like get to the net. That's your main thing, right?
Yeah, eventually get to net, but when you cut it into pieces, they're not gonna, if they're pushing and they're not gonna do anything about it, what you're doing is you're playing 4 extra shots. It's basically clay court tennis. You're trying to expand, right? You're going small to bigger. It's hard. I get it for like some of the club players, because what happens is you get sucked into the pushing game. You know, say it's like you win the first set 6-0 or 6-1 or 6-2 or whatever. Second set, you're already thinking about the match being over. And then all of a sudden you start drifting. Next, you know, the game's deuce and you're like, what the heck? And all of a sudden you lose a game. And you're like, how did I just lose a game? Like, what the heck's going on? So now all of a sudden you're like, oh no, I don't want to miss another shot. So you start playing middle and they start playing middle, and it becomes a push. And then when you go for something, because the bottom line is like when you slow down your swing speed so much, you can't go, consistency comes back from, I mean, I talk about it in clinics where, say, just as a base, say my racket speed is 50 miles an hour. Well, I can go 60 miles an hour, I can go 40 miles an hour. I can kind of maintain my like spin and power. If I go 70 miles an hour and then 10 miles an hour, and then over the time of a match, say like I think I'm already, say you're a pusher and I'm playing you and I'm having my way with you in the first set, but I slowly start decreasing my swing speed because I'm like, oh, I got it. Jonas is just a pusher. I got him. And all of a sudden my swing speed starts dropping from 70 to 50. All of a sudden it starts dropping. It's like when I want it, then all of a sudden I'm rallying at 20 or 30 miles per hour. And then I want to increase. You can't jump up to 70 from 20 or 30. And that's what the pusher sucks you into doing. Slowing down your speed. And I say, when that happens, I'll tell people, if you're an aggressive baseline, you start slowing down your speed without knowing it. All you need to do is think spin and think one location. It can be just the middle. If they're not attacking you, just think spin. I think of dropping the ball shorter. So I'm in the second set, it's 2-2. I just lose a game 3-2 to a pusher. And now I'm like, you know what? I might lose this set, but I need to spin the ball because I've been spraying things, or because I've been pushing. I want to go hard here, and then I want to start expanding a little bit more back to the baseline that I was doing in the first set. And that's why I was winning against the pusher, because I was pushing them back and using the angles. So now I have to aim shorter with good, strong spin to get my speed back. And then I start expanding on that. Does that make sense?
If you can hit with enough spin to keep pushing them back, and then at the right moment, get to the net, maybe to finish it off, I think that would be a good strategy in general, right?
You have the player up here, play up here. You're roughly using the deuce side. You can cut it as much as you want to. You can shorten this up. You can make it big like this. So I open up this box area here because you're working out of the deuce side cross. So when you start the rallies out, you're going to use these 2 boxes, and you're going to slowly, you can widen them up because you know they have to hit it back to you. So you're just working on stuff. This is not like a game plan, because obviously if you're playing a full match, the person can use this half the court. And that's what I'll talk about later. But you're trying to use these 2 boxes to manipulate. And then you want to go here, get them here, get them here, and pull them off the court. So you're just doing like a little flip flop. So if I attack here, I can attack here. From this location, I can do a couple things. From the flip flop, I can do a couple things. And basically, you're just trying to work on your baseline pattern to get to here. Now, the other part too, I think I wrote in the notes, is you want to work on getting to the net. At the higher levels, you want to beat the guy at the net, and you want to take that pull shot. Now, the hard part to teach some of the kids when they're volleying is like, the harder you hit the shot, you can do this from a fed ball drill. You can take your student, you can take your child, you can take your buddy you're hitting with, take some balls and go here, hit some decent shots, like some heavy spin, top spin feeds, put the guy there, hit the ball here, and tell him to get the ball cross court. It won't go cross court. If you hit the ball hard, it's going to come back to this area here. But you get curious. Obviously, pros are a little different. Pros can can manipulate their wrist enough to do that. But even the pros get stuck on those. If they're jammed enough to get put on the run, they're going to go back in this area here. But that's not taught anymore. I mean, back in the old days, the volleys were taught more. Nowadays, I don't know who's teaching the volleys, but I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying it doesn't seem like the volleys are that prevalent. And I'm guilty of that too. When I teach, for instance, like last week, I did more volley work than I did in the past in like 2 days than I did in the past 2 months. But it's been windy some days, so I don't do volleys as much. I always tell the kids, I want to get the base ground stroke boxes, whatever drills, consistency done in July. Once August comes, we shift over to a lot of volley work. And then I'll be going indoors, and that's when I get more volley work done. So I'll kind of shift back to ground strokes in September because we can still play outside till about mid-October. When I go inside, we'll go back to volley work. So I kind of flip-flop the training every month to 6 weeks. Obviously you flip-flop the side, and when you flip-flop the side, that's just the opposite. I'm just putting the box over here, and the person can work on the backhand, pulling the person off, using the middle of the court to attack that. The hard one is probably more when you're working out of here. Now you're opening another box. So you kind of technically from here, you have 2 box areas you can attack, but it's really tight. The guy over here can only use this area. So he becomes like, so for an aggressive baseline, I teach them how to become a pusher. Like, oh my God, I never played games like this. And it's like, well, go do it, because you're going to learn how to smarten up. You're going to learn how to be better at like controlling a little area of the court. I'll do these drills with the kids where this guy can only go this way. I go here, they go here. So it's a butterfly drill, and you can do it so many different ways. So I do it here, but you can keep it simply. Like one guy goes down line, the other guy goes cross court, fine. Well, now you do that for a little bit. You just work on your mind. You're not doing this in a match. This is just for training purposes. And that's where I think I'm not explaining it enough for the people at home, because I'm either in a rush or like the last time we were rushed. And so now here's the funny part about this drill is then you go open. So I'm hitting with you. We're just going right through the center. And we're not purposely trying to go to the outsides, but once I hit a deep enough shot, you're trying to go over here and it just lands over here. Now the point goes open. Once a point goes open, that's the thing I was talking about in the last podcast, where I start attacking, where I start using the outside boxes.
By the way, how do you mark this up? So you have some...
I'll do chalk.
Yeah, chalk. Okay.
I'll do chalk if I know it's going to rain the next day, or it's going to rain. Like people get upset sometimes if there's chalk marks on the court. But when I'm at the town courts, it's like whatever. Some people have no clue. They're like, "What? We're little kids here, like drawing pictures." But I'll do cones too. But the cones, sometimes the problem with the cones is you'll step on them, or you'll have to jump around them occasionally. Some of the kids get upset because they missed a shot, and I'm like, "Look, whatever. You're just working on stuff. Like don't get so hyper on like."
But there is like rubber lines you can have as well, right? But
yeah,
they take up some space.
Those work because you hit the cone, points over. You hit the rubber lines, it's like a clay court bounce, so you get a funny bounce. But I'll use chalk. I'll get like the big ones, like the fat ones that the little kids have. I steal the chalk from my kids, basically. And but you can do the same drill out of here. Why would you do it from this position? Because now you can only go over here. So when we're doing this drill, so we do the drill from here. You can do it from here. You can do it from here. The drill is just a drill. What happens is when you open it up and you start playing the points, and you just feed in from this area, and we're just playing this to this, one of us is going to drift one. Once we drift one, unintentionally, that's when the point goes active. So from here, what I always want to work on, when I'm working this and the guy hits here, I like to take the ball there to spread the court. Then I want to come back here. I really want to get to here, but what I'm doing is that this drill is working on me or my student or whatever, to attack the player off the court, to basically stretch them 1-4. This is like, so box 1 is always due side, box 1, box 2, box 3, box 4. Now I had a commenter wrote that he saw it on IMG. People are cutting it to 8 boxes. I don't doubt it. I was like, you cut it to wherever you want. Like, so for instance, like this is just a simple 4 box. I only talk about that because that's what I'm doing with the students right now. But does that make sense? Where when you and I say are hitting here, one of us grips one, and then maybe this is your backhand side because you're a righty. So maybe you take your slice, you take your one-hander, and you're just boom, you ding me in the corner over here, and then the point goes active. Does that make sense for as far as that goes?
Yeah. I think drills where a point starts when you are hitting outside or missing a target, I think they're good because it's also fun to do, right? So you have actually an element where you have to focus and get going straight away, right? Like kind of like a real point. So I think those kind of drills are good. Also learning how to control the ball within a certain parameter, like we're in the, towards the middle or towards like a narrow corridor, so you can actually manipulate the ball and get it in the right place all the time. I think that makes sense. In terms of pushers, I mean, is this a way to, how does this relate to the pusher guys?
So to the pusher, it can, if they're on the box where they can be the aggressor and go to the open court, they can actually start opening it up and like, oh my God, like I was pushing for, I don't know, 5-10 years. And I never played any games that allowed me to be an aggressor, because whenever I get stuck, my technique is a little off, or on the run, I just usually just flip the ball back over the net and try to get it, be consistent, try to get it deep. Well, now all of a sudden they start being a little aggressive, and they're like, like now I'm adding a little element to my game. And they're like, hey, Joe at the 4.0, Joe at the tennis club is, everyone knows he's a pusher. Everyone's saying, hey, you're playing Joe, he just pushes, he just gets the ball back. All of a sudden he uses over the summertime, and he comes back in the fall, and they didn't see Joe for 2 months. All of a sudden Joe's being a little aggressive on his forehand side or his backhand side. And they're like, oh, where'd you learn that? Like, oh, I've been playing this game. I saw some podcast online, and I've been playing this game, and it's making me more aggressive. So these games taught me how to be smarter. Like I didn't, and then all of a sudden you start realizing I don't have to hit winners all the time. So that's the hardest thing. So even when I'm teaching kids who are aggressive baseliners, I use drills like this because I'm and I'll force them. I'll be like, say one kid can beat one kid easy. If it's a full court, well, I give him half court, and I'm like, now win. Now try to figure out. He gets frustrated, and after 2 weeks, 2 months, I make him do it every now and then, once a week, a couple times a week. He starts learning the effect. But here's the thing about coaching is you can't tell people. It's like show, don't tell. You got to show them. You can't tell them. Nobody listens, especially nowadays. But I will say it's changing. Coaching is changing. I Instagram post about it, but I kind of rant a little bit on Instagram about how helicopter parents and helicopter guardians are messing up the system, because now kids need constant feedback, like every 2 seconds. Am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? I'm like, how old are you? 15. I'm like, you're 15. Like, what do you think? Are you doing it right? So I was talking rhetoric. Like even on the last podcast, someone put me in quotes, like, what do you think of this, Jonas? Or what do you, and I'm like, that's how I talk. Like when a kid comes at lesson, I sit there and say, what do you want to work on? And some kids in the past will be like, Evan never knows what he wants to work on. He's always just asking us. And I'm like, no, I'm asking you because you need to know. You're the player. Like I never went to a lesson where I was like, what do you think I should work on? I already knew. Like the coaches love me because I just said, look, we're working on volleys. We're doing this because I hate pushers and I want to beat a pusher. So I want to learn how to volley. So the other thing too, like people grudge about the 4-box system. There's so many variations. I can go like this, and I can only hit in those 3 boxes. If I hit here, point's over. So I can use a 3-box system. It depends on who I'm playing. I'll get into it in a second, because like one of the pictures I sent you, I'm not saying the stuff's not out there. I just don't read books. I don't go online. I don't follow what people are doing. I see all the technical stuff online, and I kind of get frustrated because I'm like, well, there need to be more like mind stuff going on out there, because I think people are looking for not technique. That's like, I think people, I don't know, how do you feel about the online stuff? Do you feel there's too much technical advice out there?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot. Like, I mean, people soak it up. So I guess there's, when there's a lot of interest, obviously people will do more. And that's what seems to resonate. Then the question is how people utilize it and how they incorporate it. I mean, that's, I think, is the concern. I mean, you need to be pretty diligent and pretty, focused to get what you see online into your game without an extra coach that you're actually going to, or someone who can help you. So I think, but I don't know. I mean, it would be interesting to hear from people what they want to see. But what I'm seeing myself is that people want to see like how to do this shot,
Right. Yeah. So when you do a game like this, like I was saying before, so if it's only out of here, well, people will say like, well, what if this happens? Well, say like you just said, when you get a big forehand, you start working, you can hit every you can do what you want with the forehand side. Well, the 4-0, 3-5, 3-0, 5-0, doesn't matter. The player's eventually going to end up over here. So once you get them to come here and you don't have an answer, that's when you're in big trouble. To beat 5-0 and below, I have my out here. So if I'm doing a drill like this and we're opening it up, whenever someone attacks here, I use my slice and I just hit a short angle. And what I'm doing is just like making the court longer rather than just hitting a ball here where it's just shorter. Comes back to who I am off the court. Like I'm 2 eyes for 1 eye. You attack me, I attack you twice. I make it not worth your while to attack me. And I'll put you in positions here with my slice so that you come in, I'm going to pass. You come in, I'm going to lob you. You come in, I'm going to, and you're covering quick. I'm going to go back over here. Like I just cause a lot of havoc with that one area. And that's like, I want to say it's like where the corner of the service box, I just stretch them over there. I'll keep doing this one pattern. And this is where I talk about consistency. I attack this spot consistently. I'm establishing this. I want him or her to know, you're going to attack me. You're going to pay the price. You're going to come over here. All of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to start coming out here. Well, now, once I shift them, I don't have to change anything until they show me that they're getting there with anything, something that they're going to try and hurt me with. Well, once they get there, they had to turn their hips and take off. So once I see that they're crossing, I call it midpoint. I'll say here between contact. Once I use that as my base. So while I'm hitting the shot here, my eye is not watching the ball. My eye is watching them and where they are by the time the ball is going. And I see, okay, they crossed here. I've got this area when I need it. When I go here, what I'm doing is, it's called cat and mouse. It's like, I want you to run. I want to take your legs out before I beat you. I'll play you 4 or 5 shots that you have crappy position on. And over time, you're going to get worn down mentally and physically. The winner doesn't serve a purpose, but it does sometimes. When I go up levels and I need the crack. I need to put that fear into you that I can hit the winner. Because for top players, if you can't hit the winner and you're just slicing, it's like you're not a threat, but you're a threat to like the pusher or the guy who's under 10 UTR. You can threaten those people with the same shot over and over like that. A buddy of mine I grew up with, he's a 4-0. He hope you didn't watch this podcast. But I'd always tease like the guys, they play a lot of matches at the club, and I'll be doing a lesson and I'll just go over and I'll say, hey, he's a runner. I mean, there's old school tennis books used to have advice in there that actually not bad when I was a kid. Now out of tennis, it's like all commercial. It's all about like gear and selling crap. And I'll never forget, like one time I read this thing when I was like still training and learning how to play, was people like to run, stick them in a corner. People don't like to run, put them on the run. You know, it's like simple logic, but it's true. So what I did was I told this guy that was playing my buddy, the 4-0, I told him to stick him in a corner. I said, he's going to be like cage. It's like caging a lion. And then all of a sudden he's going to give a short ball. Then you attack that corner. That works pretty well. But you have to find out if the person's a runner. Like you said, the ones, because they like to create like weird angles out of those run shots. What happened was during match play this week, there's one of my players, hits one ball flight on the forehand side, and it's just a bullet. Well, here's another trick for the people at home. Like, I don't know, I thought everybody does this, but I just watch all the time. So if I'm teaching a lesson at the club and a new person comes in, my mind immediately just like, new person. And then my mind's like, beat that person in 10 seconds. Give me 3 ways. My mind just says this stuff. I'm in the middle of a lesson. I just look over, I watch, I see a couple of things. I'm like, then, because I know someone's going to ask me, like, this play, I played this 3-5 player and blah, blah, blah. I don't have a standard response to everything. I watch a player and I'm like, oh, she doesn't like this. She doesn't like that. He doesn't like this. He doesn't like that. But even when I'm at the town courts, I do that. My brain's always like looking for ways to defeat something. I watch how people train too. So for instance, if I'm at the club and I have a player who's like a high school player, but I know they're going to play this other coach's player. Well, I see what they do the whole time. They just hit cross courts, something like cover your crosses. So I'm always like paying attention. But the kids I'm doing lessons with, I'm like, hey, when we're getting a drink, watch. I go, look at that lesson over there. Look what they're doing. I go, that's like, you have to know this stuff. Like, you know, if I'm at a tournament, same thing. So that's the change that's coming now for the junior game, not for the adults, but for the juniors, the slice is starting to come back again. I see it at the tournaments. Some of the boys are starting to use it. My daughter uses it. I wish she would work harder and use it more effectively, because that's what's leaving right now. So Barty retires from WTA, and now, I mean, I don't know if you watch a lot of WTA. I don't watch as much. I try to watch a little bit more, but there's a few like Jabber who throws some wrinkles in there. A couple like that girl made the Wimbledon final. There's a percentage out there, I'm sure, that WTA uses these 2 areas a high level. Like during every match, it's always like, get to the corners, get to the corners. Like, don't even worry about the middle of the court, just get to the corners. Guys do it too. But for players who want to get better, for juniors who want to get better, you really have to develop the middle of the court. And I'm guilty of not doing that as a player, but as a coach, I'm like, why did the coaches never say this to me? Why? But I grew up in, I'm 47, so I grew up in late 80s and 90s, and it was faster courts. Now with the slower courts, or say I don't play, like I forget when I stopped playing, was like 03, 04, somewhere around there. When I was playing like more tournaments, and all of a sudden I disappear. I start teaching and just focus on teaching. And all of a sudden I go back to the tournaments and I'm like, ooh, I'm getting old here with my philosophies. I got to change my way of thinking because the old stuff's not working anymore. All of a sudden the sandy courts, I mean, I don't know how you guys get it, but I'm sure it's everywhere. You get those sandy hard courts. Well, it starts slowing the ball down. Like there's courts locally that if I play this one court, I'm playing a ball and a half per point, like because it's just gritty and whatnot. Then I go to these other courts a little quicker. Well, I can play old school. I can just start attacking right away. There's this theory I'm going on about time and space. When you attack me out of the corners, so the guys attack the girls, whatever, out of here, I have so much. I mean, it's just obvious geometry that I have all these angles I can do from here, but not only angles. It's not about the angles I have and the attacks. It's about what I can make you do to get the ball back to where I want it. So all of a sudden, I'm on the angle. You attack me on the angle. I attack you in the center. Djokovic uses this a lot. And that's what I'm trying to explain in some of the videos, but people are like, oh, this ain't new. I'm like, it's not new. It's just he does it a lot. Like he does it way more. If you took the percentage of how much he attacks the middle of the court during baseline rallies to how much he goes to the sides, it's crazy. I watched Medvedev, Djokovic from like in the fall, Paris, and then I watched 2018 Cincinnati, and I was like, it was like the best match I've ever watched in my life, best baseline tennis I've ever watched, and it was like such chess. It was like, holy crap, the amount, the length of the points compared to what they were doing, and just constantly like maneuvering each other, and I'm like, holy crap, this is good stuff. And this guy can also use the middles too. So you're using the middle, like the ball's not going to come back here, generally speaking. The ball is coming here, and that's what you're playing for. So you attack me here. I hit it deep here. You go here. Well, now I've got the attack. So it's like these guys aren't paying attention to that. And I'm like, their usage of the middle of the court, or they think they keep going to the corners. And I mean, how many times have you played in a decent baseliner and you go to the corners and you find yourself in trouble? And you're like, but all of a sudden, you're like, you know what? I'm just going to hit it deep into like this area to their backhand side. And you're like, they missed it. And then you hear the guys saying, like, sometimes I'll hit with some of the hitters who I bring in to play the juniors, and they're like 4-5s. And I'll play points. I'll just kind of bang this box against one of the guys, or I'll bang this box. And the guy will be like, this is so easy. How are you missing this shot? And in my head, I'm like laughing because I'm like, if it was easy, you'd be making the shot. One, two. The other concept too is like time and space. So obviously I have more time here than if I hit the ball here or here. And the more time you have, the more thought, the more your brain can think of like what you want to do. So if I hit you all the way here, even if you get stuck, you have all this time. But if I fool you and I take time away from you, you don't have time. And then next thing you know, you're screwed in a way. But one of the things I want to show you is pretty cool was so I was watching Brooksby play Tiafoe this morning.
Yeah, I saw some highlights from that actually. Brooksby's playing well again. Now it's on hard courts.
Kind of. So see this boxing. People always pick on these boxers, right? So here's the 4 box. If you do a 4 box, well, what is this? And this is the rally spot. So say I come out here with you and I'm like warming up. We're warming up cross courts. Well, that's my cross court drop. That's your cross court drop. That's Joe's cross court drop. That's 95% of players' drops, right? So you get a lot of experience from this area, right? And look at the space, but look at the small space, right? So you're looking at small space, big space. So if you're playing a guy who just trains cross courts and plays sets, whether you're a pro or whether you're an amateur, this is the spot you want to get to because there's so much space here. You have to get here to get back to here. And it's I don't know what I would call it, like a 3-way attack. I don't know. Someone can make a better language than me. But so when I was watching Tiafoe, he hits this spot like constantly, and I'm like, he just must hit cross courts. Warm up with his like hitting partner coach. They hit cross courts, so they hit they hit this spot over and over and over. All these top guys got AI, and they're saying, okay, you play Tiafoe, he drops this. In baseline rallies like 70% of the time. So you just need to work out of here. So I know if I'm playing Tiafoe tomorrow over time, you build a playbook, just like Brad Gilbert's book, like Winning Ugly, build a playbook. I used to study, like, you know how he says, like in there, like I used to just watch players at tournaments. Well, people don't watch anymore. So when they do this drop here, so say the drop's here, again, like it's a space, there's no space. So if I'm hitting cross courts with you and I go here, you can blast me. When I talk about spots and target hitting, it's just hitting spots and targets. You should only do spots and targets for power fed ball. Like, you know, like coaches feeding you balls, you're just like, bang, target here, bang, target here. You want like the targets you don't want to rally. That's where you want your targets. If you're a coach or if you're a player trying to get better, if you put your targets here and I'm rallying with you, it's just not, it's not going to end well for you. Like your muscle memory is going to be always want to go here, no matter what. You take 2 weeks off, come back to hit, your muscle memory goes here. This is what Djokovic knows, and this is what the top psychologist, like I guarantee he's traveled with a psychologist or has a psychologist on the side who teaches them psychology of the other players. So when I get back to the boxes, what I was trying to get at was, if you put a box here, instead of a target, and you put a box, now I can hit here, 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 I can hit here. I can manipulate where I'm dropping the ball in a box area. That's huge. That's like so big. You don't want to have to target. You don't want to, like, I don't want to sit there and rally with you and hit a target here. And I'm like, okay, let's move the target. Let's go here. Okay, let's go here. That's only 4 targets. I can hit so many different targets here, like there. And I can manipulate you so much during the points. So now, what I was talking about with a buddy today is take this rally drop spot, get rid of it. And when you're hitting to the center, and you rally here, well, now look at the space here. Now, if I push you in the corners, it's a longer space. But now when I put you here, I can get here. So that's why Djokovic is using this in Medvedev. They're using this spot, not this spot. Even if I go here, I'm trying to make the space the same. If I hop boxes here, I can hop a box here. So say I hit you here and hit you here. I'm only keeping you here. If I hit you here and hit you here, you can create a lot of havoc for me. But if I keep you in tight boxes, that's I want to say the adult version of pushing. So Djokovic's version of pushing is a 2-box system. He knows, like, say I'm playing you in points and I know I'm just hitting these 2 boxes and I lose the point, I don't feel anything. I don't feel angry. I don't feel mad at myself missing. But if I win the point, again, I don't feel angry. I don't feel mad. It takes emotion right out of it. But if I have this whole thing to deal with, and I miss a shot, I'm like, God damn it. How do you miss that forehand? What are you doing? Like I spray one or something like that. It's like, it's silly. So you're looking for time and space, how to control the same distance in between each spot, but it's 4 spots. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think that using the narrower middle makes a lot of sense.
I watched Brooksby this week. I look at him play Mackenzie McDonald. I'm like, that dude is good. I'm like,
yeah, I saw that match actually.
He should be doing some damage, but here's the problem I have with Mackenzie McDonald. But I'll show you a couple of things that he does. He played a couple of good points, but then he just disappeared. And it's as simple as, like, if you look at it, you're like, well, he missed 10 returns in the first set out of 19 points being played. If you take away the first game, I'm like, yeah, that's true. But when you play Brooksby, I wrote about this in a couple of the pieces that, like, earlier I sent you in the year. And people don't pay attention. And I'm just like, whatever. I'm not sitting here saying like I'm some wizard and I know everything. Like, people get the misconception, I think I know everything. I don't know everything. I just know a little bit. Like, I just know a little. I just see a little bit. And I'm like, maybe I see things a little bit differently than other people. Against Brooksby, you need to get here, but you can't just go there, right? So here's a concept I want to show you really quick, what I used this past week, and I'm explaining it to some of my players, and I explain it to more like the 10+ UTRs. There's a guy who still plays on tour. Actually, he called my phone while I was talking, because I want to go over some concepts with him. It's a simple concept, but so say this is my return. You're serving, right? So I take the return and I put it here, roughly. Like, I try to get it in this area. I don't want it over here because that's that cross court drop spot. And I just return here. So I return this one here and this one here. That's what Djokovic is doing. So he starts you off here. Well, from here, I'm trying to, if I get you to go here, well, now I've got this whole area here. It opens up a lot of doors, right? So all of a sudden it goes, but if you come back here, well, we're just going to play it out cross court. We'll see what happens. You go short, you miss your spot, then I'm going to attack some spot. Well, later in the match, or say a couple games later, or it could be in-game adjustments, I start taking that same return, I start taking to the inside. I start taking the insides. All of a sudden, you get screwed up. Like your hands get screwed up because you're like, I've hypnotized you into believing something's going to happen. I should move it just a little bit. It wasn't a huge move, but you're sitting there thinking, I'm attacking the center. And this is where this is where I laugh at. People think, oh, isn't this just talking about going to the center? I'm like, no, it's talking about like little fine lines. Like this is a big deal. The dumb opponents are going to be like, Evan always hits the return of the center. I'm like, no, I don't. I go across your body to this side. I go to the same part of your body here, because you're not going to, eventually if I want to come here, you're not going to take that ball back here because you're out of leverage. I've got this area here. I'm forcing you to play something over here. Now, if you hit a great shot, you hit a great shot. You hit a better return. If you hit a weak return, though, this area opens up all these attacks. And that's what Mackenzie does it a few times. And I'm like, man, I want to write him a write-up and be like, buddy, if you could do this more against Brooksby, you're beating that guy 2-2. Like you're not gonna say 2-2. I gotta say that, but as long as you execute all your stuff. But does that make sense? Like how to manipulate?
It's a bit like the grip change thing. Also, like you're hitting on the side that is a little bit tricky to change. Like because when you get 5 forehands in a row, you start grooving on the forehand, and then that maybe the fourth forehand you can rip the ball. But if you constantly have to hit a slightly different ball, it gets trickier. Right? Even for the pros, it gets more complicated.
Yeah. And the funny part is, like, even Mackenzie got, like, Brooksby is smart. Like I said that before, I said again, he snuck a few returns here from this position, and he just dumped the first ball. And it was not a hard shot, but it's the fact that he was so patterned to believing this, all that little change, just that little change at 30 all, dumped the return, gets break point. And I'm just like, I laugh when I see that stuff because I'm like, that was smart. I laugh because people say I laugh. I'm not laugh like I'm making fun of somebody. I'm laughing because I think like, wow, that was freaking smart. Yeah. Now, say the guy kicks out wide or slices out wide here. I never understood this till recently because I'm like, well, you get taught what? Go cross court, cover your leverage. No, you can't because there's too much space. So what happens is when I go all the way over here, again, it opens up this. Well, I got to commit fast. It opens up that back door. I call it backdooring. When you come back this way, it opens up the drop shot, opens up like there's 50 million things that open up. If I return that ball here for you, you have all these attacks you can do. Now, so again, it's time and space. So it's hard to explain because I don't have this down yet, but say I'm like, I got time and space here. This time and space has to go to this time and space, because then if you go to this time and space, well, I'm already here to here as a cover. I can cover that time and space. If I go all the way over here, I have to really bust my butt to get over here. All of a sudden, it just opens up all kinds of crap. I mean, Sinner is starting to use this concept. If you watch even his last turn on the clay, he's using this concept.
Yeah, he's improving. I think for him, I have seen a noticeable improvement.
Hitter or coach there out of this box is just smashing you. He's just hitting big, and he's moving you side to side. You're just working on your control. How many in a row you can get there, 10 in a row, 5 in a row, 20 in a row, it doesn't matter. But you're trying to keep it into that box area, right? So you want it fast paced. I wrote that, but you want the guy hitting big out of those boxes so that when you are over here returning, you can cover that shot. So really the key is learning how to cover this shot to this corner where you can neutralize their attack. And it's a good drill, but you just got to find the right pace to work with. So if you do it from the drill version, you're just working these two boxes. This guy's manipulating you, going through here. Well, then you take away this box and then you play a game version and you just play regular scoring, 15, 30, 40 deuce, no ads if you want to play no ad. And then you rally out of this box big. You don't just out of it. A lot of kids in the clinics, they'll sit there and they'll be like pushing. And I'm like, hey, if they push, it's open. Pound it. I go, don't sit there and let someone just push. I do it to some of my students too. Like they'll want to play a cross court game in a lesson just to work on something. And they'll be pushing balls back. And I'm like, you push another ball, we're going open. You understand that, right? If you hit a meatball, I'm going to put it away down the line. So stop hitting those meatballs because I'm going to penalize you for it. But a lot of kids and coaches in America, they'll sit there and be like, okay, we're playing a cross court game. And these kids end up pushing. Or 50 in a row, they end up pushing 50 in a row. And they don't get better. And then it's a whole can of worms. But so what you do is you're hitting back to this guy's spot. Once he attacks, the point goes open, and you're going to be on the defense. But what you're really working on is as if you hit a return, like down the road, that goes here, and you're going to get attacked here. You have to work on your recovery from that box, and you have to take this to here, and you can take it here. But most of the time, you're going to want this box to set up this box. But does that make sense? All you're doing is playing a game out of like basically the middle, somewhere around. You don't have to do like 1/6, like you don't have to cut it in 2 boxes. You can make it a box and a half. So there's a small area here, big box, and then a little box. You know, like you can do so much with it, but like apparently, like people want everything like specific. Like, is it 3 feet or is it 3 feet 2 inches? Like what? I'm like, just make the box, just go play. One of the guys who's contacted me ever since the first podcast, he's like, man, he's like, some of the stuff you're talking about is just way too above my kid's level, blah, blah, blah. And I just laughed. I said, exactly. I said, that's why guys like you contact me, is because you open my eyes to like go back to like what the beginning was like. So I said, forget the boxes I was talking about with your daughters. I go, focus on just 2 boxes. Focus on 2 boxes, then make 3 boxes, then make 4 boxes. I'm not telling the 2'5" lady to go out there and just make 8 mini boxes and go hit those spots. I'm like, start with the 2 big boxes, then make then cut them in half, and then start moving the box around.